Keith Tonkin, welcome. So the federal government is assuring everyone that supply is not an issue at the moment, but there are analysts who are saying the longer term picture is not so clear if this war drags on. How do airlines position themselves to prepare for scenarios like that?
The airlines rely on the supply of that fuel at the pump when they're about to go flying. So it's a really just-in-time operation, but they strategise out much further than that. Most of the larger international airlines will have a hedging arrangement where they'll prepay for a certain amount of fuel over time at a price, and that price will represent the risk that they're taking and the suppliers are taking to provide that fuel. But ultimately, it relies on with about 30 days worth of storage in Australia, we're relying on those tankers bringing fuel to resupply the storage, and that current supply chain is being disrupted.
So is it likely that Australian-based airlines could face challenges in the near term?
Yeah, in the near term, I think things are going okay. There's about a month's worth of fuel in the country. Whether it's in the right place at the right time, that's another question. And in the longer term, if those tankers stop coming with the fuel, because most of the jet fuel in Australia is refined overseas and brought to Australia for distribution, if those tankers don't have any jet fuel to bring to us, then we're going to be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, and so like with the Australian government nationally, the airlines only have that about a month's supply here in the country at the moment?
Yeah, the suppliers, so the airlines will rely on the supplier being there. Whether they've got a contract in place or not, that can't make the fuel appear if it is not available to be shipped. So they'll be relying on the supply with the contract in place, and obviously if things turn worse, then there's not much they can do if the fuel isn't available to uplift at the time they want to go flying.
So are there any indications that some international airlines are adjusting their businesses now to account for potential fuel challenges in the coming months?
Yeah, certainly. Recently we heard about Air New Zealand cancelling forward schedule to accommodate some shortages of supply domestically and for some of their international flights. And that represents not only their own fuel supply and the cost of getting fuel and the likely challenges in servicing demand at a higher price over time, but it's certainly in airlines thinking at the moment.
And is there any sign of any Australian airlines starting to do that?
I think they'll be very, very closely monitoring the supply situation and having contingency plans in place. There's no doubt about that.
And might those contingency plans include cutting the number of some flights in coming months, or it's just unclear?
Yeah, well, it's unclear, and that'll be thought about in contingency planning at the moment, and plans will be in place. We're not hearing at the moment about any changes to scheduling other than associated with airspace and other concerns around the hazards of flying through the Middle East at the moment.
So what's your advice to people who might be planning a Europe trip, say, in the coming months?
If you have a ticket, then closely monitor what's happening, but the airlines will be planning to fly those flights if they can, and if they can't, they'll be in touch. And exercise discretion about how you're getting there and what countries you're flying through and what airports are being relied upon for that flight, because they might need to change.
Yeah. And insurance would be a good idea?
As long as the insurance policy covers for some of the uncertainty that's coming forward, that's definitely a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, Keith Tonkin, thanks so much for having a chat to us.
You're welcome.